Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sharon Bonney. I'm the CEO for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. I'm here with my colleague, James, who is training because he'll be doing webinars very shortly. And we're delighted to welcome you to easy Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint projects for language practices. Before I go any further, I'd like to just take a moment to recognize Essential Education. They're here with us as a sponsor of this webinar, which is why this webinar is free to you. So I'm going to introduce to you Dan Griffith, who's the Vice President for Essential Education. Dan?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sharon. We appreciate the opportunity to sponsor this webinar. If you can go to the next slide, that would be awesome. I think that's our slide, hopefully.
Dan, we do not have your slide. I'm sorry.
No, you had our slide, I think, but.
We don't have your slide, Dan.
Okay. Well, we'll connect back with everybody on that. I think we sent it, but must have gotten caught in the crosshairs. So thanks for the opportunity to participate in this. We do have a tool available to everybody that is a series of lessons from our writing book that will be in PDF format that you could send out to students. So Sharon, when I get off this, I'll send you a link to that site, and maybe at some point you could post that for people. It is a free PDF download with a series of really good lessons to help people prepare for some of the writing on HSE assessments that would be beneficial to them. Essential Education also has a series of new webinars that we're doing, and we'll have those up in probably a week and a half. It'll be an 8-part distance learning webinar series we're really excited about. And then we have a series of tools that we put together at a very low cost to help as people are transitioning to distance learning with our HSE academies, our ABE academies, and our workforce products. And if you come to any of the webinars that are upcoming on distance learning as well, I'll make sure I have slides in place. If you'd like any information from Essential Education, just email me at dan@essentialeducation, dan@essentialeducation.com, and we'll get you any details you need at that point. So thanks again, Sharon, for the opportunity to sponsor this, and I will sign off from there.
Thank you, Dan. And I just want to take a minute to really recognize Essential Education because this webinar is free to you because of their sponsorship, but they've also stepped up in many, many other areas as well. So real quickly, I wanted to mention there's a few other things we're doing to deal with the challenges of COVID-19. Right now, we're dealing with the COVID-19 challenges by having Advocacy April. And as many of you are likely aware, COAG really leads the charge when it comes to advocacy for the field. And we know that many of you are really impacted and you don't have the funding that you need to deal with the distance learning implications. So we've done a number of things. As usual, we have our $692 million ask for WIOA funding. That's one. But then there's also 2 additional asks. One is called the $1 billion COVID-19 Federal Funding Challenge. And what that is we're really reaching out to legislators, asking them to help fund teachers and administrators to better work with adult learners, specifically from a distance. So we know that many of you are dealing with adult learners who do not have laptops. They do not have Wi-Fi access. It's really difficult. There's a number of different materials that you're trying to get online. And we know that this is hard. And so we're really trying to get funding for that. I do want to mention that even though we're asking for $1 billion, we don't anticipate getting that. We're shooting high. And so we need every voice to really work with us on this. As well, with the stimulus funding that came about recently, there's $32 billion that was sent down in state block grants. What this means is that this is now at the state level, meaning your governor and your state legislatures are the ones who can help with funding. So we put together these 3 funding requests. Very, very easy for you to go in through the software that we have and to send 3 emails through that software. And you're going to go to coaid.org for more details. It's right there. It's on our home screen. I just can't encourage you enough to do this. And I also want to just mention, none of this funding comes to COAG. There's no pass-through to us. This goes directly to either the state directors to then push forward, or it goes to your state legislatures. Our role really is to raise that voice of the local program administrator and the teacher to come together as a field to really stave off funding cuts, yes, but then also to add more funding so that you're able to deal with the challenges of COVID-19. As well, we have set up some targeted webinars to provide training to help you navigate the challenges of COVID-19. And I just wanted to read a couple of them. So we have Bridging Access to COVID-19, Information Among Adult Learners. That has almost 1,000 people that are registered for that. That's going to take place on Thursday at 2 o'clock. We also have Best Practices for Teaching Online. That's on Friday at 2 o'clock. Student Engagement in Online Learning. That's on April 20th, on Monday at 2 o'clock. Teaching Digital Literacy Standards Using a New App-Based Approach. That's on April 22nd. And we have Considerations when Implementing Distance Learning on April 30th. Now, many of these webinars are made possible through a special partnership with the Outreach for Technical Assistance Network, which is called OTAN. And the gentleman who's going to be our presenter today is Barry Buckine. And Barry comes to us with a lot of experience in this area. In fact, he's been running a lot of webinars on this specific topic, distance learning, for years now. So I'm going to read Barry's bio. Barry has been an educator with the Division of Adult and Career Education of the Los Angeles Unified School District since 1987. He was a classroom teacher of ESL, citizenship preparation, and ESL topics for most of that time. For the last 3 years, he has been an instructional technology teacher advisor at North Valley Occupational Center, working with teachers learning technology integration skills to benefit their own instruction. Barry is also a subject matter expert for the Outreach and Technical Assistance Network of the Sacramento County Office of Education. He's delivered both face-to-face and online workshops and webinars on a variety of technology-related topics for OTAN, and also at numerous regional, state, and national and international conferences. In addition to his many years of experience in the classroom, Barry has a master's degree in educational technology and is a level 2 Google certified instructor. So without further ado, I want to introduce Barry, and I'd like to encourage you all to put your chat questions, or I'm sorry, not questions, but if you want to chat in the chat box, introduce yourself and say where you're dialing in from in the chat box, and then put your questions in the Q&A. That would be great. So Barry, are you there?
Sharon, you're going to have to let me start the video if you want, because I can't unless you release. There you go.
So I see the chat box is filling up with a welcome for you, Barry, and folks will put their questions in the Q&A.
Sharon, if you want people to see me, you're going to have to unstop my video, because I get a message saying I cannot start it because you stopped it. Let's try again. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
So, yes, hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Yes, this is a new experience for all of us. So please bear with us in case there are any little technical glitches. But let me go ahead and get started right with my presentation on PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's see if we can get right there. Okay, so as Sharon noted, my name is Barry Buckine. I am what's called an instructional technology teacher advisor for the Division of Adult and Career Education of the Los Angeles Unified School District. That is a relatively new position in our division. We've been doing this for about 3 years. Basically, we are out of classroom teacher advisors at each one of our major school sites, of which there are 11 in the Division of Adult and Career Education. And our role is to support teachers with the instructional end of incorporating technology and instruction. We have other people who deal with the technology end of things. You know, if your printer isn't working or if the network goes down, those are a different set of people. We are able to be with teachers in the classroom because we don't have our own classroom assignments, and assist them as they work with introducing technology. And I may say we have been quite busy the last 2 weeks or so, working from home, just as everybody has been, and helping our teachers get through this new form of, for many of them, of instruction. I'm also what OTAN, the Outreach and Technical Assistant Network, calls a subject matter expert, which basically means I've been doing these things longer than other people have. Let me just say a few words about OTAN for those of you who are not in California. OTAN is a statewide leadership project through the California Department of Education, and they offer technical assistance and training to adult educators throughout California. And everything that you see on the website, and maybe Sharon, if you can go ahead and type in the direct link, it's www.otan.us in the chat, so people can click on it right away and take a quick look at the website. Is available for free anywhere. Basically, the only thing that, if you're not in California, that you probably wouldn't be able to access, or that you won't be able to access, are the things that they do with Moodle. And of course, we can't do face-to-face, workshops for you either. But everything that's on the website, you can access. And right there on that first page, if you do click on that link, you'll see what OTAN has set up in terms of the COVID-19, period of time. And you'll see quite a few webinars there as well, and links to sign up for those. So again, that's OTAN, and I think you'll find quite a lot of resources there. Okay, so for today, hopefully, my objective will be that you'll be able to demonstrate to your ESL, ABE, and academic students several separate projects using Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and perhaps even Excel if we get to the end of the webinar with time. And so the idea here is that students can use these projects to practice vocabulary, grammar, demonstrate mastery of content, and then also at the same time develop needed skills in these the basic productivity software that they may be using in other classes. So let me talk a little bit about pretty much the first project that I always used to do in my ESL classes. And again, I predominantly taught ESL. And also, the other thing would be that if you do have questions as you go through, put them in the questions and answers, and Sharon and James will call them to my attention as we go through. Some of these projects, I'm just going to show you the project, and others hopefully will be able to do some step-by-step instruction. So in any case, the very first one I always called the About Me project. And basically what we have, oh, and by the way, and Sharon, feel free to, vocally interrupt me if there's a pressing issue or question at any time. The idea of this project was, first of all, to introduce, myself, because I always use the sample, to say a few words about myself to the students, but also to get the students to introduce themselves to you. And it also would give me a sense of the writing level. Of course, even though, the class itself was, ESL beginning high or ESL intermediate low, there was always a range of actual writing ability within a class. So I was able to see, fairly quickly where my students really were. There are some other benefits to that as well. I would save everything. By class and by semester and by year on my own computer. And so it creates an archive, not only of pictures of the students and their work, which came in really helpful in a number of ways. One, I'm sure you've all been in a situation where you know the face, you know the student, you had him or you had her in the classroom, but can't remember the name. And so sometimes it was real convenient just to, be at my desk and see that, pull up that the student and see where they were and see who they were. That was helpful. But it was also helpful for the students because of, I'd walk in my other role as a technology teacher advisor, I would walk into upper level classes or high school classes and see my students and, be able to show them where they were, a few years ago with their writing and their abilities. And that was always nice. Additionally, it provides an introduction to revision and steps of writing because I would also save their drafts. And, that allowed me to, show the progress. And sometimes that came in helpful, when we'd have an accreditation and they want to see student work. So not only do you have completed student work, but you actually have a progression of student work. And for some of these that the drafts start with their handwritten pages. So I would scan their handwritten pages before they got onto the computer and have a progression to show them. Also, it introduces basic keyboarding and basic skills like saving a document. And, there was always a range. I would have former secretaries and, professional people in my classrooms, and they would have no problem with some of these things. And then, going all the way down to the, not just, two-finger typing, but one-finger typing. And so, for those students, this is a way to start to introduce them to the idea of using a computer, using a document. How you actually go about saving and working with students is going to be different, depending on your own teaching situations, whether you are going to a computer lab or in the old days, or maybe in the future days when we get back to that, or if you only have one computer, or if you have laptops in your classroom, or if you're teaching completely online, and we'll have a little bit of a chance in a few moments to discuss some of those options nowadays. But, they would teach the basic skills. And so in this first project, all they really had to do was get the text onto a computer document. And I would do everything else, especially at the beginning levels. These things would, the final documents would get posted on the classroom wall. It makes a really nice display, having 30, 40 of these essays. The students liked it. They could read about themselves. One caution is, many would often put their addresses and phone numbers and things. And so I would advise them that, this would be going up on the wall or in some other format. So we'll just leave that information out. But really, I did everything else. So all they had to do is get the text into a document, and then I would have the picture. I would do the formatting, because it was just my my personal preference that if it went up on the wall in the classroom, it had to look pretty uniform, and that worked out quite well for me. In terms of the photos, actually, for the first week of class and whenever a new student came in, I would actually take their photo. The first day of class, even, just line them all up in a big line in the classroom, and have them step in front of a whiteboard and take a picture, so that I would actually have that, and I would do the insertion of the photos. Later, as we progressed in projects, they would learn themselves, how to do that themselves, but I would do it. Occasionally, I had students who were hesitant to have their photo taken. So you'll have to, work with that individually. Nowadays, of course, you may not have the students in front of you, and that would be another thing, having them supply their picture. Let me just go on to the next slide. So as I indicated, pretty much I'd always done this in, face-to-face with classrooms. So now, what could we do to take this to an online platform? Well, this is an example of our LMS. Some of you may, this may be familiar to you. This is Schoology. And in Schoology, we, there's a place to put a profile pic and a bio. And so if you have a similar type of thing as an LMS that your school district or school is using, instead of doing it as a document, this may be the place where you could incorporate this project. You could do it as in other ways, a shared Google document. If you're using Remind, you could ask students to respond in that way. We're not, the purpose of this particular webinar is not really to discuss how to do the online interaction with your students, but I did want to bring it up that all of the projects that you'll see theoretically can be transferred to an online platform, but you may have to, work with your own advisors and how to do that, or participate in some of the other webinars that specifically talk about using Remind or using Zoom or whatever method of online interaction is available to you. This is just more information along the same, some more suggestions. For example, as you saw, I had that, what I call the template. You could email the template out, and then they could just replace the text with their own text, or replace the photo with their own photo. And this is a sort of a whole new arena for us. So I'll be focusing more on the actual projects as opposed to the how. So this is our second project that I like to do. I called it Speech Balloon Conversations. And basically the idea here is you find a picture somewhere, either it's resident on your computer, or you use a search engine and look at certain images, and find one with a lot of people in it, or at least two or at least three, because that gives the opportunity for more conversation. It's really adaptable to all levels. You can it's up to the instructor to decide if they want to reinforce vocabulary or a grammar point or some other content, and or some combination of all of those things. All you have to do is just in your instructions say, look, we've been studying present perfect, so in at least one of your sentences, as part of the conversation, include the present perfect, or include this topic, or make sure that you also have the assignment that we've been studying this week somewhere in your document. So, and here too, finished projects make an interesting classroom display or website presentation. Again, you could share the project, with whatever LMS that you're working with, or email it out to everybody. If you're working in a lab, one of the things that was fun is after students had completed their presentation, and we do everybody would display it on their computers, and then we'd have students, I'd have students walk around so they could view each other's projects displayed on the desktop. So again, they've done perhaps in the first project, they've done a few things. Now they're going to be introduced to more useful document techniques. For example, inserting a picture and then inserting these speech balloons. So this is one where I was thinking that perhaps we could work through this together because you may not be familiar with the idea of these speech balloons. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the presentation and go directly to a Word document. And so there'll be a moment when I transition. And so what I would hope that you could do is open up Word or I assume what other word processing program you have available on your computer. And of course, things may vary a little bit if you're using something other than Word. But arrange your windows so that you can continue to view the presentation and see what I'm doing while you also try doing the same thing on your own computer. So I'm going to stop the share for a moment. Okay, and let's see if I can just share my Word document. And then the idea would be that hopefully you can watch me as I'm doing this. Actually, that's a different project. Let me get to the other project. Okay, so again, so while I'm doing this, and let's see. Hopefully you're watching me do it, and then you're also trying to do it at the same time.
So Barry, we just see main topic and subtopic. Is that what you're wanting to show?
Right now, all you should see is I switched. That was the wrong project.
Okay. Can you stop sharing your screen and reshare? I think it's still stuck on that last screen.
I see. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
How's that?
That's an empty screen.
Right. It's a blank. It could be an empty, a blank document.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So what we have to do first is find a picture, any image, and I did tell students that it would be okay to use pretty much appropriate pictures. But you know what, it occurs to me, let me just stop this for a second. And we're going to go back to the presentation. And because I have a few examples that I wanted to share with you. So let me do that first. Okay, so now are you back at the speech balloon conversation? Did I do that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So these are, I have 3 examples of these are actual student projects so that you can sort of get an idea of what it looks like when the students do it. And I wanted to illustrate this convention that seems to be fairly well established. I don't have enough feedback yet to know if this is an international convention or not in cartoons and comics, but when people say something, they have the solid box, and then when people think something, or I guess in this case animals, they use the cloud outline. And so I use this to show to students the fact that people often, the cultural fact that people often think something different than what they're saying. And that really gives you an opportunity to have some interesting discussions with students about that cultural difference. So here you can see, you know, the puppy saying, I love you, and the cat is saying, I love you too. But then the cat is thinking, you know, please take this stinky dog off of me. So again, really, really nice. Another example, you know, once people are shown that that technique, so many examples of you know, people saying something different than what they think. And then one final one, which is really, really, you know, it does, you know, it really touches the students, and I'm sure that they have some sort of, you know, a lot of personal experiences with that. And so she's saying, you know, you said we were going to go to the restaurant, now you're going to play tennis. And he's, you know, giving an excuse, but what he's really thinking is that his, you know, high school flame or his college flame, Melissa, is going to be there too. This was an intermediate low student, by the way, and so it really does show you that how flexible it is. Okay, so let me go back now, and then we'll see how to actually do this. So as I said, the first thing that you need to do is get a picture into your document, and you can do this by you know, finding the photos on the computer, going to you know, Google Images or another website, and searching for a photo, and copying and pasting it or saving it. You know, that can be up to you. I happen to have a couple of photos that I prepared already. So if you're going to insert, if the photo is already on your computer, you can go to Insert a Picture, and then you find it. I've already set it up, so I know that it's there. And I'm just going to insert it. Now, what's going to happen, of course, depends on the actual picture. So obviously, this particular photo is way too large to do this project. So this is a good time to show and demonstrate to students about resizing a picture. And you know, one of the things that you want to show them, of course, is if you only go from a side, then you may distort the picture. See, so this is a nice time to teach them about resizing a picture from a corner, and it maintains the proportion. Okay, now the other thing that I teach at this point is that at this particular location, I don't have any room to put the speech captions. And so what I like to do at this point is show students, when you click on the picture, you get the options here, the layout options. So this is, if you click on the picture, it should appear right there, but you can also reach that under layout. And it's the one that they call wrap text is what shows first. And so what I like to do, I think the default for Word is in line with text. But for this project, I like to use in front of text. So I'm just going to click on in front of text. And what that does is it allows you to move that picture anywhere on the document. So what I do tell them is, typically for this project, we want it down near the bottom. So hopefully, if you have decided to follow along, you found a photo on your computer. Notice I try to pick a picture with a lot of participants, you know, displayed in the picture, so that they can have a lot of options about what they're going to say. And then I also, you know, make it a fairly decent size so that you do have room at the top of your page for the speech balloons, but you can also clearly see the picture at the bottom. Okay, so the next question is, what about those speech balloons? Well, again, you find those under Insert. So I'm going to click on the Insert menu. Okay, and they're going to be under shapes. So I click on my shapes option, and because I do this a lot, they're already right up here at the top, the recently used shapes. But if you haven't done it before, you have to look at the bottom. And what Office calls these, or what Word calls these, are callouts. And so you see quite a few different styles. You don't need all of those styles. Basically, these first four. So you have a choice of a straight rectangular callout. You click on that, you select it, and then you start to draw that callout on your paper or on your document. And first of all, you'll notice right away, the default appears to be blue. That may or may not work. But notice you can actually start typing right away. So I'm just going to start typing. Okay, but notice that the text, the default text, is in the white on the blue background, and it's also pretty small. But it's like a text box, so you can highlight. You get the menu immediately. You can also go back to your home tab and get your menu for the text and for the size. And so right away, I'm showing students that they can make it larger or smaller. Okay. And remember, I do tell them this is going to go up on the wall. So probably you want as large as possible text so that people walking by can see it from a few feet away. All right. It has all of the handles. So you can change size and shape of the basic rectangular shape. And then the the yellow circle on the speech balloon will brings the pointer down. And you can adjust that. Okay. So you click off of it and it puts it in place. And later if you say, you know what, I don't want that, I want it over here, that's great. So let's do another one. We'll try a different one. I'm going to go back, insert a shape, look for my callouts. This time maybe I'll do an oval. You can see what that looks like. Oh, I think I clicked on the wrong one. I'll just delete that. Insert a shape. There we go. So again, we get the blue. And so this is where, I may want to show the students about changing the color. Okay, so you have your fill, and you can show them, look, you can pick all sorts of different colors. Okay, when you start typing, you can highlight the words and choose a different font color. I show them that. And of course, the different size. Okay. You can adjust the size. You do warn them, if it gets to be too small, they might not see all of the text. We're going to change that to I don't need help. We'll put that up here on top. Okay. And just one more for this. We'll do something that he's thinking. I want to go back and put some punctuation. And so again, this is something that even lower level students can pick up on pretty quickly. Change the size so that people can see it. Change the fill, maybe make it the same as the one that, or a little bit different than the one before. And boom, there you go. One of the things that I do like to do with these and with all the projects is somewhere on the page, insert a text box. And just move it down near the bottom somewhere. And I always have the students put their name, the class, the date, and then I always had them put my name so that they could remember me. And that would go down near the bottom somewhere. Oh, that's right, I have to change it to in front of text so that it goes all the way down to the bottom. And you know, that would pretty much be the project. I'll take a moment now and perhaps take a look at the question and answer. Have Sharon let me know, did anybody have any specific questions about this project that I didn't address in the explanation?
Hi, Barry. So
Yes.
we have this question: how do I cut and paste a PDF file and into an Excel worksheet?
Repeat that.
How do I cut and paste a PDF file into an Excel worksheet? Was the question.
Well, I'm not sure. Well, perhaps when we get down to the Excel project, maybe we can take a look at it, but I don't know off the top of my head.
So Barry, having worked a lot in Excel, go ahead. I think you have to save it as a, you can't save a PDF into an Excel. I think you have to save it as a graphic image, correct?
Yeah, I am not a CTE teacher teaching Excel. I wish I had one. There may be one out there in the audience who can contribute the answer to that. But off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd have to experiment. Are there any particular specific questions for this project?
Okay, so there's a few more. LMS, what does LMS stand for? I can answer that. Learning Management System, that's what LMS stands for. One question, how do you make the speech balloons on the picture?
Okay, so let me just do one more so that we can answer that while we're doing it. I find the speech balloons are under insert and shapes, okay? So Word calls them a call out. You can see quite a few things here that are available, but the call outs have the features that we're talking about. So basically you select one, move to the document, and notice the cursor changed to the crosshatch. And now when I click and drag, I'm drawing the actual text balloon or speech balloon. Notice that in the center of the speech balloon, you see the cursor flashing for text. So if you start typing, it's actually a text box. But as I indicated during the practice, the letters may be too small. So you want to, well, the letters will be too small. So you want to use your tools to enlarge them. You can use your cursor to move it around. You use the yellow one, means that there's something else that you can do. So I'm going to take the little handle, the arrow pointing to the person, and move it to the person. You can change the color. In that case, I did a right click. You can also go up to the menu and do this, but by doing a right click, you get that menu right there. Change the color to something different. You can also change the text at that point. I hope that answers the question, but if you're still not clear, let it be known in the chat box, and Sharon will call it to my attention. So
Right.
Sharon was only...
Yeah, there's a few more. And just to clarify, folks, if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A, not in the chat, because there's 433 people on. So we need the Q&A is for questions. Okay, so then there's other questions. How do I change the background color for the balloons?
Okay, so like I just demonstrated, there's, in Office, and, there are always multiple ways to do something. So if you notice, okay, so I haven't selected anything at this moment, okay? And notice the menu item says home. I'm on the home menu bar. But as soon as I click on the speech balloon, notice how Word automatically jumped to format, because it recognizes that you probably want to do something with this speech balloon in terms of formatting. So if you look right away, here's the wrapping menu item. Here you have some things, how to change the color of the text itself. So you could do it here and change your colors. You have a lot of options. Oops, let me try that again. There we go.
Great. So Barry, we've got a few more questions here. Would you like me to
Okay.
ask? Okay. So can you talk a little bit about modifications for smartphones? The majority of our students do not have computers, but rather use their smartphones for connecting to the internet/digital needs.
You know what? That's a great question. And I must admit that I have not ever tried this on a smartphone, nor have I asked students to do it on a smartphone. But I know that my phone, even though I've never really used it, they do have programs that are, I think you can even get Office for your phone. I have an Android and I think a Samsung, and there's something that comes with it automatically. I suggest that you, unfortunately, I haven't done this yet on a smartphone. You would have to, if that's the only device that they have, you may have to experiment with some of the apps that allow you to use Office directly on your phone, or some of the other. Fortunately, that would have to be an experimentation that you would do, whether these options, whether the app for Word has this option or not, I really can't say.
No problem. So Barry, I know you've got a lot more to cover, so I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. How do you insert a text box below the picture? And then how do you delete a shape you don't want to use, were the other two questions I saw here.
Okay, so to delete a shape, it's as simple as you click on it. You get not on the inside, but on the boundary. And then you can just use your delete key on your computer, and that will delete it. The text box at the bottom is basically the same process. Insert, and then there's a menu item, text box. It says choose the text box. Okay, they have different styles. I just do a simple text box. As soon as you click on it, the text is highlighted and you can replace the text. Okay, then you can choose your layout option. Again, in front of text is the best, and you can move it around wherever you want to. Okay, so without, unless there are some pressing questions, let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to stop the share of this item and go back to my presentation.
And while Barry is doing that, I just want to encourage everybody, continue to put your questions in the Q&A, because what we're going to do is circle back. We know we won't be able to cover everything, but we can circle back if it's in the Q&A and we can contact you directly. So please continue to put those questions there in the Q&A. Thank you.
I keep automatically going down to the bottom right and it says leave meeting, and I don't want to do that. So let's go back to share screen. I did want to show you one final possibility. So as almost invariably, every time I would show students a project, a student would come back with an improvement. So in this particular case, what one student did was instead of coming back with a single document, they came back with a PowerPoint presentation. And so what they had done, and let me just play this for you, is they made that conversation into an individual PowerPoint slide.
Having this baby was our dream.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me. Did I go ahead when I shared that? Did I share that with this? Yes, I did share it with the sound.
Right, it was sharing.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Let me go back to that.
I love you and the baby so much there. I wonder, is it my baby?
Okay, so what was so great about that was not only did the student come up with the idea of splitting this up into a PowerPoint presentation, they also added narration. So again, depending on the level of students that you work with, it's very, very adaptable. And as you do these things, your students will come up with ways to improve them. Okay, so that's the speech balloon conversations. The next project I always called photo grammar. And so in this project, again, this is back to a document, but you will have students who will come up and do this as a PowerPoint or a Google slide or whatever you're working with. But really the idea is, again, just use images and describe the images using sentences and vocabulary and grammar that you're teaching. Okay, I see. Just checking on the time. So we're not going to go through this, but step by step. But basically, again, as the teacher, you tell them what you're going to require. In this case, it was we were working with simple, compound, and complex sentences. And then I tossed in adverbs of frequency because we're also working on that. So basically, they're looking for photos, they're inserting the photos, and then they're writing as many sentences as you tell them. And basically, you're just looking to reinforce whatever it is that you're teaching in class. There really aren't any new techniques here in terms of using Word. It's inserting a photo and the text could be either as a text box if they want, or they could just be typing as a document. But the next big project that was a little bit more complex and did take a little bit more time are cluster diagrams. And so even in the beginning levels or the middle levels of ESL, once students start getting ready to use paragraphs, we were trying to support our academic classes by introducing ESL students to various writing techniques and diagramming or graphic diagrams to assist with their writing. So again, the finished projects make an interesting classroom display or website presentation. There's really nothing new in terms of the document techniques, except perhaps, well, I'll show you. In any case, but you're inserting, that in this time you're not inserting a cluster balloon. I'm sorry, a speech balloon, you're just inserting a shape. But the process is really the same. So I have a few examples. So this is a intermediate low class again. The topic, they chose the topics. But again, you have your main topic, you have maybe 3 at the most subtopics, and then you have the supporting facts that the students think of in the different clusters. So this is the actual document. That came out of that. So let me go back. So how you can get good computer skills at work, at school, at home. And so you can see how easily it transforms into the paragraph. And then again, all depends on the students. And then again, students come up with improvements. So one of my students said, well, somehow it came to them that, you know what, I'm going to color coordinate my text as well. I said, oh, well, that's a great idea. So you can see that the sentences in their paragraph correlate to the colors in the clusters. I thought that was a great improvement. Okay, and then one more, just another example. And obviously this is not a topic that I came up with. This is a topic that meant something to her. And again, you know, the difference between the paragraphs and the essays show you differences in what the students can do. So I was thinking also with this one, I think we have time. Let me do a walkthrough with some of these ideas. So I'm going to share that. Okay, so as noted, basically it's the same type of thing. This time, instead of inserting again, it's inserting shape, but instead of inserting a call out, it's up here and just in the basic shapes. Okay, so you have the oval and you draw it. And again, you can start typing. Okay, now some little ways to make this easier for students is, let's say after they do their first one, I teach them about copying and pasting. So instead of trying to recreate all of the colors for a subtopic again and again and again, teach them about copying and pasting. And they'll have all of their supporting facts the same color as their subtopic. So all they're doing is just typing now the different fact.
So Barry, thank you so much. This is Sharon. I just wanted to kind of chime in. So we've covered the Microsoft Word piece. We're at the top of the hour here. We're going to cover, originally we were going to cover Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So I didn't know how you wanted to deal with the remainder of those topics because
okay. Right after this one, basically the Excel and the PowerPoint are the same project. Okay, so I was going to rush through this one, touch on the Excel project at the end.
Okay.
So really this is the same as the speech balloon project. You just have this idea of the windows. Now, the little clusters. So the only other new may be the line. Okay, so again, that's also a shape. Insert a shape, insert a line, and then you draw the line. Okay, and so, and again, you can change the color of that. You can change how thick it is. Okay, and then the problem here was the lines don't always match up, and students would spend a lot of time trying to get the line to work. So at that point, I would just teach them, look, there's a much easier way to do that. Just draw your line bigger than the balloons, But if you right click, you can just send it to the back, and then it looks perfect. So again, let me do that. And so again, you highlight it, you can copy it, you paste it, put it where you want it, drag it around, and then right click again and send to back. And it looks perfect. So really that's all you need to know to be able to complete this project. Okay, so let's move on and we'll get right to the next section. Okay, so in this particular one, this was a PowerPoint project. I misspoke a little bit. There's another project before we get to the Excel one. But basically, in this project, I did introduce PowerPoint. And then the idea here was inserting a picture of an action and then using the slides to switch back and forth between different grammatical tenses: present continuous, simple past, present continuous, again with a different picture. So there's really not too much different here. The only thing that I would show students how to do is once they made their present continuous slide, they could duplicate that slide. And that way, the pictures and the sentences appear in the exact same location on the slide. And so it avoids the jerkiness when you try to recreate a slide. I would just have them duplicate the slide and then replace the words that needed to be replaced with the new words, the new text. But that was really the first introduction to PowerPoint. And again, very, very flexible, adaptable to all levels. And you could also have students narrate these as well. Here's another quick little project. I do want to show you the Excel project before we have time, before we leave. This is called Making Coffee. And basically you give them this already. But if you notice the pictures, even though the letters say A, B, C, D, E, F, the pictures are not in the actual order. Okay, and so what you do in this case is they have to drag the pictures into the correct order. Let me just show you real quickly how one would do that. So in this particular view of a PowerPoint slide, this is what they call their traditional view. And so you see the 4 slides on the left and the workspace is in the center. But if you go to view, there's another one called slide sorter. And in this picture, you see all of the slides together. And in this one, you can drag them into the right order. So what the students would have to do is I would share with them the scrambled one, and then they would have to move the slides into the correct order. So where that brings you next is the next part of the project would be they have to create their own sequence. They take the pictures, they label them, and then they make a sequence of a particular project. So if you are working with students in CTE classes, you know, this would be a nice project, having them explain a process. Okay, so this then is the project that involves Excel and PowerPoint. Oops, sorry. Basically, what you would do here, this became a speaking project as well. I'm going to switch over to the actual research project. Oops, that must have been the wrong one, sorry. There we go. So this is four PowerPoint slides, basically. And again, this would not be the first project you would do in a semester. This is really the culminating project. The first slide is a title slide. The second slide explains the question that they've actually researched. This is the research project. The third slide is a slide that they made in Excel from the data they collected. The next slide is basically a question. Do you have any questions? So this was done for the purpose of presenting in front of a class. Now you'll notice that there's actually two classes involved. So this became a collaborative project because when I was working with intermediate classes, I found that they were able to speak and present these projects to an audience, but they didn't have sufficient language to be the audience and respond in the question and answer phase. So it occurred to me I needed a more sophisticated audience. So I would pair up with a higher level class. And so the higher level classes could serve as the audiences. And so my students would do the presentations. The higher level students would be able to respond to the questions. And this was done live in front of the students. And believe me, when you make students do a presentation in front of a class, it's quite exciting. But let me get to how you actually make this chart in Excel. The first thing is they always had to ask a question, a research question that needed a verbal response. Something like, what color shirt are the students in the class wearing was not an acceptable research question because they didn't have to actually use language to get the answer. So they always had to ask a question, collect data, and keep track of that data. Let me go to an actual Excel project from the students. So in Excel, this is a very, very simple process, and we'll try to get through this as fast as possible because I realize we're going over a little bit. All they really need to do is have two columns. In the first column, the students write the variety, the different things. So in this case, it was, what is the favorite car company of the students in Mr. Bakeen's morning class? So in the first column, you get the names of the cars. In the second column, all they're doing is just putting the numbers. To get this chart, it's a very simple process. Students are just highlighting all of those boxes, and then what they're going to do is insert a chart. And they already come up in the menu. Typically, the easiest one is just the bar chart. You just pick the first one, and there it is. And it goes into the Excel chart. They can manipulate that in various ways. Over here on the left side, add a chart element. That's how they get the chart titles, or they get some of these other things along the side. They can click on an individual bar and manipulate it a little, perhaps by changing the color, which is interesting or fun. All sorts of different things that they can do. To get it into the PowerPoint, all they do is just copy it. They copy it and they paste it into the PowerPoint. So it's a great project. Gets them speaking in front of an audience. They learn about presentation techniques, how they have to project their voice, how they have to stand so that they can see the chart and see the class at the same time. So I regret that we didn't have as much time as possible for that, but hopefully you have the basic ideas.
So Barry, did you feel you had enough time to run through what you needed to for the Word, PowerPoint, and Excel projects?
Say that again?
Do you need a little bit more time, or do you feel you've had enough time to go through the Word, Excel, and PowerPoint projects?
I think that sort of, it builds on all the other skills. You know, once you start with Word and then you move into, you know, inserting a picture or inserting the, you know, the speech balloons, you know, it's all scaffolded. So by the time that students get to doing PowerPoint and Excel, they already have, all their learning is about doing it on a different platform. I just have this one final picture. So this is, the student team is the student in green standing, and she's the one speaking. And then her partner is the one operating the slides. Then the audience is right there. It was really quite exciting, especially when you brought in other classes. Basically that would be the end, unless there are some burning questions in the Q&A, which I'm happy to stick around if it's okay with you to answer some of those questions. But basically, hopefully you were able to see some ESL, AB and academic student projects using Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, and also Excel. I forgot about that in this slide, that you can use with your students, and hopefully you will be able to translate them into the online format for this period, and then continue using them when you're back in the classroom. So Sharon, if you want to take a crack at reviewing some of the questions posed in the chat, I'm more than willing to take some time and do that.
Fantastic. Well, first off, there's just a few kind of overarching questions. Will we get a certificate of attendance? Yes, everybody will receive a certificate of attendance. Second, will this be archived? Will we have a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes, all of that will be archived on the COIB website. Barry will be sending that to us today. So everybody will receive those. Beyond that, a lot of these questions look pretty similar in terms of asking, you know, where did you find the cluster shapes? How do you change the color? How do you insert the arrow? So what I want to say is to everybody is, I really would encourage you, when we're recording this, we're going to save it on our website, just review this again and go back to the section where Barry talked about that. There was some folks trying to explain, you know, how this would be able to be useful in Google. And I'm not sure, Barry, if you feel that that's something you want to tackle here, like in the Google platform. Is that something that you use with your students?
Well, no, it's something that I'll be dealing with too, with my own teachers. I can't say with my own students because I don't have my own students anymore, but my teachers will probably be asking the same questions. But, you know, there are definitely techniques for working with shared documents or documents within and projects within Google. You know, one technique, you know, that you don't want everybody working necessarily on the same document, the actual same document at the same time, because then they start deleting or changing what everybody else is doing. So one version that I've seen, or one technique to deal with this, is you make a Google Doc with however many students you have, you know, a separate page for however many students that you have in your class. So if you have 30 students in your shared Google Doc, you make 30 pages, and then you name, you know, you repeat the same, like if it's a template, you repeat the same template, you know, 36 times, and then say, okay, you know, student, you know, number one, you're working on Google document number one. That's the one that you have to work on. Student number two, you work on number 2. That way they're less likely to mess up everybody else's document. And then, or you just, you share one document with one student and then they work on that one student. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you mean. I know that, Google Docs, you also have something analogous, I forget the name of it at the moment, but you do have, the I think it's presentation, where you can create Google Slides. There you go. You do the same type of thing as PowerPoint. Whether or not it has every exact feature, I can't say off the top of my head.
No problem. And actually, I just want to mention too for our members here that, we have a wonderful partnership with Google. We've done Google Boot Camps. Hopefully in 48 out of 50 states. We'll have a Google Boot Camp at our COIB conference coming up in August. So highly recommend you attend that, because that's where they're going to teach you all types of Google Classrooms, do's and don'ts, and how to use the Google tools. So we can leave that one there. I do have another question here. Do you have any suggestions of projects that can be done with lower level ESL students? The projects being shared seem to be for a bit higher level students who maybe already have some degree of digital literacy and higher levels of English proficiency.
Well, again, I feel that especially the first projects are very, very easily adaptable at all levels. The examples I was demonstrating have a little bit longer expressed ideas and sentences. But, if you give them the picture, for example, okay, and you say, okay, what will, they don't have to do the speech balloon, they could just type it, the dialogue next to or above. But if you can get them to actually do a speech balloon, they don't have to do a very complex sentence, whatever their level is. I don't know if you're familiar with a website called Make Beliefs Comics. Sharon, do you know what that offhand?
So it's called Make Believe Comics.
Maybe if somebody in the audience is familiar with that, if I can get to the chat box, I'll answer it. But Make Beliefs, BELIEFS Comics, and I'm pretty sure if you can find that.
So Barry, what we could do is we can add this as a link when we send this out to everybody. If that's
there we go. Let me see if I can do it. Make Beliefs Comics.com. I'm pretty sure that's it. So they have lots and lots of activities, and what they do is they actually give you pre-formatted comics and things that you can probably use with all levels. It's a great website. It's completely free. The fellow who created that, Bill Zimmerman, has presented it, TESOL and things like that, I'm sure. Lots of options there even for lower levels.
Okay, great. So we're at the end of our time here. I will definitely we'll be looking through to see if there's any other questions pull up. There's more than 80 in the Q&A, Barry, so there's no way we're going to get through that. So I will tag team with Barry after this webinar, but I just want to take the opportunity here to thank you all for joining us, to thank Barry for his time and for lending his expertise and talent for the field when we're going through these effects and challenges of COVID-19. I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us, sticking around with us for an extra 20 minutes. And of course, a very special thank you to OTAN as well as Essential Education. So thank you, everybody, and we will certainly be in touch. We hope you can join us for the other
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, James, and thank you, Dan, for Essential Education for also making this possible.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye now.